Hey, I'm training to be a championship cuber and documenting the process. If you're new here, every single week, I make a specific training plan for how I'm going to practice cubing that week. I log all of it in a spreadsheet, and then I make a video like this where I go over what I did the previous week and what I'm going to change and improve for the next week. My ultimate goal is to make finals at a major championship for everything from 3x3 to 7x7 at least once, sometime in the next 6 years. This week, I'm going to recap last week's training, and then I'm going to yap a little bit about something I've been thinking about that I'm calling the 3x3 skill tree, but really it's just me dumping my brain onto a whiteboard and wanting to talk about it with whoever watches this video. And then I'm going to talk about how I'm going to change my training next week. Oh, my next competition is Temecula Valley Winter. I'm doing 3, 4, and 6, and that's coming up in just about a month. This video is sponsored by nobody. If you are a sponsor watching this, this could be you. You know who you are. So, what did I do last week? Well, for 3x3, I spent quite a bit of time primarily on solves, which is the first time I've done this in a while. I was doing PLL time attacks for about 15 to 20 minutes a day, doing a 2-look F2L drill where I look at the cube, I find my first 2 F2L pairs, solve them with my eyes closed, open my eyes, inspect the last 2, and then solve those. And then I was doing between 75 and 100 solves a day. I did not put my times in here, but I got like a 7.7 single and a 9.5 average of 5, which I'll put on screen. My global mean is right at 11 seconds, sometimes under, sometimes over. For big cubes, I'm in maintenance mode. I'm not doing a full training plan, and I'm evenly splitting it between everything, which is about an average of 12 a day on 4x4, down to a mean of 3 a day on 7x7. 4x4 was very mid this week, 5x5 was surprisingly good, and somehow I fluked a 6x6 PB single with double parity, my first sub 150. So 4 through 6 are not too bad. 7x7, my TPS is incredibly horrible. I'm averaging like 330 right now. I could easily be sub 3 if I just wasn't old and slow. Hopefully I'll get a new 7x7 at some time soon. But I'm just going through the motions with big cubes. Nothing major to report other than that 6x6 single. So, other things that happened this week. I went to physical therapy, and it was literally for cubing. I felt really dumb going into the physical therapist. I was like, hey, so I know you work with like Olympic athletes and CrossFit Games competitors, and I promise I work out and powerlift, but I'm here for Rubik's Cubes. So what happened is I've been getting very, very stiff upper traps, like my neck here and through this area of my back has just been very, very tight and tense. After a cubing session, I'll stand up and move my arms and my shoulders and neck, and this area will just be like pop, 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 pop. And it's really annoying. Cubing totally aggravates it. And I recently was prescribed Adderall. I got diagnosed with ADHD about 3 months ago now, which has been a phenomenal thing for my life, like understanding that. But Adderall was giving me some issues, high blood pressure, as well as, I thought, because of the high blood pressure, muscle tension. It has lessened since I got off the Adderall. And switched medications. This is why you work through ADHD with a doctor, but I still have all the stiffness and weirdness up here. So I went to the physical therapist, and there's a whole bunch of advice that he gave me. So the first interesting thing is he said, I've noticed that your posture, you tend to sit with your neck forward, just in general. You lean your neck forward into whatever you're doing. Cubing exacerbates that, right? You look down and over whatever cube you're solving. And so he said, whenever possible, either between solves or just in normal life, sit up straighter and literally tuck your chin back, tuck your neck back. And as he told me about that as a posture change I should be making, I was like, Felix does this. I've noticed that whenever Felix solves, you can watch him like tuck his chin back. And I've always thought it's kind of a funny solving position where he keeps his head vertical and he just looks down at the cube with his eyes, but that's totally Felix's posture. So maybe Felix knows something that I don't. Another thing is I have been kind of shrugging the cube into the place I want it to, where I will lift using this part of my back right here. And what I need to do instead is lift with the middle part of my back or with my arms. So let me go full cam here. Instead of that motion, I need to lift using my arm, like literally pick the cube up, or use kind of my mid back down in this section and just pick everything up. It's a physiological change, but I understood what he was saying. He also gave me advice that every 10 to 15 minutes, instead of staying in the exact same locked in, hunched over position, go into a door frame and kind of stretch your arms back like this. Do the inverse of the posture that I'm in cubing. And also, I totally have an imbalance in my back. Let me go back to this. As far as muscles go, so my upper traps, shoulders, neck are very trained between the deadlifts and shrugs that I've done in the gym, but I haven't done adequate exercises to strengthen and train my mid-back muscles. And so what that does is when I pick up a cube, my stronger muscles, which are my neck and upper traps, want to lift the cube into position instead of the filled in muscles in my mid-back. So I'm going to change my training routine at the gym a little bit to emphasize those muscles and lower training on my upper traps and neck. The last thing is he said there's a lot of times when I solve where I would tense my neck, shoulders, and traps, where like you can literally see everything get tight. And when he told me that, I noticed it. When I'm trying to sprint on TPS, when I'm intentionally going as fast as I can on a PLL time attack, I start to tense up everywhere. And when I did competitive piano, that is something that my piano teacher would constantly tell me, listen, Brandon, I know right now, as you're learning the piece, you want to be tense to be precise when you're playing a fast section of the piece. But what you really need to do, if you want to reach the highest level of speed and excellence in playing that section of the piece, you have to learn how to loosen all your muscles and use weight distribution and more diversity of your muscle groups in order to play that section of the piece well. And I think the same thing applies to cubing, where if I am using tense muscles to achieve precise, fast turning, that's going to result in problems. So that's an interesting anecdote. Other things. So this is my professional drawing. I hired an extremely expensive person to do this for me. But another interesting thing I've been thinking about is the height of the table and chair. So this is how nerdy I am. But I work at a desk most of my day. My job, I spend on the computer almost all day. And then cubing is obviously a desk thing. I do switch between sitting and standing, but for ergonomics, most of the time, I have my desk at a height where my arms are at a 90-degree angle. Like my upper arm is just flat, straight up and down. It's vertical. And then my forearm is flat. So if you look at my arm from the side when I'm at my desk, it forms a 90-degree angle. I tried to draw that here. And then I have my chair adjusted very close to the desk. There's a small gap between the chair and the desk, and that's so that my arms are at this 90-degree angle. But at a competition, I'm not in a chair that's this high. You're normally in whatever folding chairs the venue has on hand, which tend to be very low. And folding tables tend to be higher than I have my desk set up at home, which means that there's a very wide gap between where the chair is and where the table is, which results in me having to reach up and over the table to solve. So I'm adjusting my desk setup at home because it's a sit stand when I'm solving to replicate this. What that means is for 3x3 and 4x4, I'm going to have to use more of a bend like this with my bicep and my forearm to keep the cube above table level. And for 5x5 and below, I'm just going to go under the table. I've not been an under the table solver until now, but I'm realizing that that is extremely fatiguing if I'm actually going to hold the cube above table height with good posture. And if I'm going to take the load off my neck and upper traps and not shrug the cube into position, I need to let it go under the table and then keep my neck up and use my eyes to look down more than I am arching my back. So there you go. That's my physical therapy stuff about cubing. I don't know if I'll ever come back to this, but I'm going back to, I totally will actually. I'm going back to the physical therapist every week for the next few weeks to do some training about how my upper back and neck work and exercises and strengthening and shoulder joint stuff. Super weird. I never thought I would end up at the physical therapist for Rubik's Cubes, but there you go. That's how dedicated I am, I guess. So another thing I've been thinking about this week, and now we're into a series of shower thoughts I've had about my training, is the difference between training for stamina and training for peak skill. So if I do an average of 12 and I just completely lock in for that average of 12, I'm using every possible brain cell that I have, but I can't solve like that for very long. If I'm going to do an average of 100 in one sitting, my brain, the active peak skill part of my brain runs out of energy, and I kind of go back to endurance mode. And there are two separate solving styles. One of them is very active, I'm looking ahead super well, and the other one is more passive, pattern recognition based than very predictive, mentally intensive solving. Both of these skills are important. At a competition, I can't rely on peak skill solving for two reasons. One, competition days are long, and the most important solves happen at the end of a competition day. And two, when you have substantial adrenaline in your system, mental acuity starts to drop very fast, and you fall back on habits and pattern recognition. When I did competitive piano, my teacher would tell me, however you're performing 3 weeks before the big recital is how you will perform under pressure that day, because that is about where you'll regress to, what your habits will fall to, what your high adrenaline brain will default back to. And so what's interesting is with cubing, with 3x3 especially, I have always only trained my peak 3x3 skill. I'll do an average of 25, an average of 50, and I'll get sub 10 globally at home, and I'll go to competitions, and when I have high adrenaline and I'm in a long day, I'll be 2-3 seconds slower. So now I need to think, how can I train my 3x3 stamina skill, not just my peak solving 3x3 skill, which will require high solving volume spread out over a long time. I'll address that when I get to my training plan for the next week. The next thing is I've been doing that 2-look F2L drill, and Dylan Miller saw my last video, shout out Dylan, and he sent me a message and said, hey, I think it would help you to think about F2L in terms of triggers instead of individual moves. Look at RU R prime. How does that trigger affect all the pieces on the cube? So instead of tracking pieces by single moves, just think, I'm about to do this trigger. What happens after those 3 moves? And what that does is if I'm doing a 2-trigger F2L case, instead of that F2L case being 7 or 8 moves in my head that I have to track pieces through, it's 2 things I have to track pieces through. I'm chunking up the way my brain views the cube, from tracking a piece through every movement to tracking a piece through a set of movements. I think this is how top solvers memorize really big alg sets like PBL on square 1 or ZB. And so when he messaged me this, I was like, this is really interesting. And that has really changed my perspective on how to predict pieces, both in inspection and in F2L. On top of that, he also recommended, if I'm gonna do 2-look F2L, for my first pair, set it up to a 3-mover, so that for the hardest pair, where there are the most pieces flying around the cube, I have something simpler to process, and I can start to learn pattern recognition instead of just brute forcing it. And that has been incredibly useful as a mindset this week. Thank you so much for that advice, Dylan. And so going forward, I'm going to be doing my very best through my F2L practice as well as my inspection practice to try and think in bigger chunks than individual moves. How do pieces move around the cube, not just one by one, but in groups, in triggers? Another thing, this is like no duh, but video review is very important. So I had several people comment this week on my last video, as well as a really old one I have on the channel. Basically something like, you turn so slow but solve so fast, how do you do it? And I was like, what do you mean? And I watched my videos back and I was like, well, yeah, my TPS is pretty slow. And that was super cool because I realized, wow, I have a ton of room to grow. If my fluidity is decent, and I can just grow my TPS, that's a really easy thing to do. If my TPS is high, my fluidity is low, you kind of have to undo the fast turning, learn look ahead, and then gradually increase turning. So that's cool. But the other thing is, I hadn't done any self-video review for a month. And then I watched solves today, and I realized all sorts of things I was doing wrong. I saw F2L solutions I was doing poorly. I saw bad finger tricks. I realized how slowly I was turning. It just adjusted my mindset so much. It gave me new things to practice, so I need to start doing this every single week. If you're not video reviewing your solves, you're leaving free improvement on the table. This is me preaching to myself and maybe the 2 other people who watch these videos. Next thing, TPS is a really dumb metric. So this week, because I was doing a lot of PLL time attacks, I was thinking really hard about how to turn faster. And also because of the whole, I'm tensing my back when I turn fast, I was like, well, what's the physiology of turning quickly? And the moment I realized I no longer care about TPS is when I switched PLL time attack orders. I switched from Cube Root's order to Kyle Santucci's order. And my PLL time attacks got almost a full second faster just by switching orders. And I also learned a better NB perm. And I realized I'm doing the same number of moves. I'm just reordering them. The regrips are better. The ease of like switching from alg to alg is better. So how fast I turn is not the point. It's the turns I choose to do that matter. So here's a whiteboard that I just kind of doodled out. and I've got finger utilization over here on the right. But everything else is like just TPS has so many aspects to it. How many regrips and rotations you do affects how many turns you do. The momentum of your solve, like if you start the solve smoothly, you're mentally ready for the next thing, so you will turn the cube faster. I didn't realize how much momentum affects what I'm physically capable of, but it's huge. Obviously, pauses affect TPS, but then I realized the limit to TPS is rarely ever physical skill. It's how much I pause, how fast I recognize what's coming next in a solve. And then there's other stuff like my stamina and the quality of the puzzle, which is massive on big cubes. Oh my goodness. That all affect this thing called TPS. And I realized this one thing has a whole bunch of subcomponents, and I threw this together in like 25 seconds. But number one, it made me care a whole lot less about my raw ability to turn fast and a lot more about how do I choose smart solutions that reduce regrips? How do I learn finger tricks that do that? How do I get so comfortable with the way that I solve that I can establish solving momentum and not be stop and go or speeding up and slowing down as I get into the back half of my solve? How can I choose algorithms or solutions that utilize all my fingers, where instead of relying super heavily on U flicks, maybe I get good at doing flicks with multiple ways of doing the same turn, so that instead of relying entirely on like 2 or 3 finger tricks, I have a bag of 5 or 6 that I can alternate between, so that I utilize it all better. There's a whole bunch of sub-aspects to this. And so when I thought about that, that made me think about this, and this is what I wanted to yap about for a little bit. And so there are a lot of aspects to getting good at 3x3, and let me see, not that yet. And most people teach them as individual skills or skills where you progress. So first learn, F2L, then learn 2-look OLL, then learn 2-look PLL, then learn 1-look this. It's just this, then this, then this, then this. But people don't see how all those skills relate to each other. And really, everything in cubing kind of ties together. And one single skill, like TPS that I was showing you earlier, has a whole bunch of sub-skills baked into it. Like TPS is not just how fast you turn. It's a combination of a whole bunch of factors that are all interrelated that then culminate in this one variable that we call turns per second. So I've just started doodling this. I want to make a whole bunch of aspects of this whiteboard. So like, I don't want this just to be, how do you get better at CFOP? So that's part of it, right? How do you get better at cross and all the sub aspects of that? How do you get better at F2L? Sub aspects of that. Like, you can learn different techniques, you can improve your basic solutions, you can understand multi-slotting and how this affects that. How do you get better at last layer? Well, there's basic algorithm knowledge, but then there's stuff like finger tricks. Then there's stuff like prediction from OLL into PLL. Then there's stuff like how do you manipulate edges in F2L such that your last layer cases are more favorable. Again, this is just a draft, but there's a whole bunch of things that are not specific to 3x3 or even a method. Your TPS, how you use inspection, your mentality when you make mistakes in a solve, your consistency, which is both, are the physical things that you do consistent? Like, do you choose consistent finger tricks like Max Park or complex finger tricks like Timon or Jaden McNeil? How do you handle nerves? Are you somebody who is very, 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 consistent in your output regardless of adrenaline? Do your physical and mental things play into that? There's like more meta cubing stuff, piece awareness, algorithmic knowledge, color neutrality. And then if you take just one of these skills, I could make probably 2 to 3 times as many factors just on what makes up TPS. And so, and then like even within TPS, like take one thing like momentum that is a sub aspect of TPS. You can then break momentum down into specific sub factors. Like, well, momentum is about, are my finger tricks stable enough that I'm not going to like mess up consistently? Do I see the solve that I'm doing as steps blended together, like cross, F2L, OLL, PLL are not separate? How I do the cross affects the next one, which affects the next one. I have a holistic view of the solve. Do my hands return to a consistent home position? Or am I improvising the later I get into a solve? Can I just practically see the next turns I'm doing, or am I only pattern recognizing my current turns? Do I have really deep inspection so that when I pick up the cube, I already know some of what I'm doing? There are so many levels to all these skills and the ways they connect. So what I would really like to do is for every event from 3x3 through 7x7, build a very in-depth skill tree that has all the different aspects of understanding your method, understanding mentality, meta skills, concrete skills, how they relate to each other, so that if you look at it, you can go, well, I'm comfortable with these things. I'm not comfortable with those things. I need to learn these. I don't need to learn those. I want to learn this, like cross plus one, but there are like 6 sub-skills that make up the skill of doing cross plus one and inspection that I need to get better at in order to tackle that one better. So the ultimate reason I want to create resources like that is so that I can help people find the maximum point of leverage for their time. This is a business concept that I think about a lot. My grandpa was a high-up manufacturing executive for a company called Kohler. They make like sinks and toilets and stuff like this. They're really big in America. And he went around and basically redid all their manufacturing plants to do a better job at manufacturing stuff. And his favorite thing to talk about with me was the theory of constraints. And he gave me this awesome book that I might have on my shelf. I don't, but it's called The Goal. And this book, The Goal, teaches this idea that in business, unless you are working on the single bottleneck in your business, your effort is completely wasted. So if you have a process and 5 things can go through step 1, and let me see if I can draw in this. And I'll draw on the whiteboard. You get Professor Brandon today. So if you have a process and in step 1, you got 5 things that can go through step 1 at a time. And then in step 2, 5 things can get through this step at a time. And then you get to step 3 and only 3 things can make it through this step at a time. And then you get to step 4 and 7 things can make it through this step at a time. And so let's say at the start of your process, you send 5 little widgets through the process. I'm gonna zoom in so you can actually see that. These 5 widgets advance from step 1 to step 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 widgets go through step 2. And then these 5 widgets advance to step 3. And only 1, 2, 3 widgets can actually make it through this step. And 2 of them get stuck waiting right here. Now, when these things advance to step 4, there are only 3 things here, even though step 4 has an actual capacity of 7 things at once. Because like this is your bottleneck right here. So if you want to improve this process, I could make step 2 faster. I could make step 2 able to handle 7 items at once. I could make step 4 extremely fast and make it able to handle like 15 things at once. Neither of those would actually matter because the constraint in my system is right here. This step can only let a few items through it at a time. And so if you're an executive over this manufacturing line, or you have a business and there's a clear spot where you can't process customers quickly, spending any effort on steps that are not the bottleneck is literally wasted effort. Like the total throughput of your system will not change until this step right here gets better. Cubing is not that black and white because you can make your entire solve faster if you improve something that is not the point of maximum leverage. Like there can be a bottleneck in your solve, like your inspection is bad, but if you make your last layer better, it will still drop your time. But there's still a highest leverage point. If I put 5 hours into improving my inspection versus 5 hours into improving my last layer, for me right now, improving inspection is higher leverage. I will get faster on average by spending that time on cross plus one because that's the bottleneck in my solving process. And for me, I think visually, I need to see everything laid out so that I can identify what it is I need to work on. And so I want to make mind maps like that so that people, including me, can find the concrete point of maximum leverage in their solving so that when they spend time on it, they can improve. And especially as somebody who's older, who has limited time, if I'm going to give time to cubing, I want to be giving time to the thing that is limiting my solving at most at this current time. And so because I'm guessing most of my audience is and will be older cubers, I want to give all of you that same possibility. So first off, right now we are at 24 minutes and 5 seconds into the video. Just drop that timestamp in a comment. Let me know that you're still watching. If you've somehow stuck with me through 25 minutes of yapping, thank you so much. I really appreciate your viewership. And when you drop that 24:05 in a comment, also let me know anything that you want visualized. What are the aspects of the 3x3 skill tree that you want to see? Are there aspects of a method you want to see? How do I get better at OLL? How do I get better at cross? Are there mentality things? How do I compete under pressure? Are there meta skills like look ahead that you want broken down? Just give me a list of all the possible things you want to see me put on a mind map or a skill tree. And so that way I have kind of an idea of the sort of stuff that other people are struggling with. Then I can teach through it, and that helps me learn, and it gives value to you guys who are watching these videos. Okay, next, what am I doing next week? Well, the motto for my next week is going to be trust the process. Here's why. So this is another ultra professional drawing, and this camera is not in a great spot, but up until now, I have been in the regrowth phase of my practice. So let's use the gym as an analogy. If you ever build muscle and you stop training and you lose the muscle mass, if you go back to the gym, you regrow muscle at a really fast rate. So when you see like shorts or Instagram pictures of people who in like 6 months go from this to this, there is a very, very, very strong likelihood that there's muscle regrowth going on. They used to train in the gym, then they lost the muscle, and then they went to the gym and gained it all back super fast because your muscles remember how big they used to be. So that's one thing, is you can reacquire physical skills quickly just based on physical memory. The other thing is knowledge. So if you have ever played like a Mario Bros game, when you beat the first level, you then have the second level, and you always die on the second level. And then you go back to the beginning and you have to re-beat the first level and then play the second level. And you get really, really good at the earlier levels of the game, and then you die at the last levels of the game. And for the last month, I've mostly been in this regrowth period of cubing where I'm relearning things I used to do. My PR average is 10.1, and I haven't gotten very many at-home averages in the last 4 weeks that are that fast, but I'm approaching it super quickly. So I'm about to come to this point where I'm no longer practicing or improving in previous territory. I'm about to hit the same level of skill that I peaked at when I used to cube consistently. This is happening to me in the gym. I have just started setting PRs again in squatting and deadlifting after going through a year of not doing those lifts for a variety of reasons, as well as being in a calorie deficit, so I lost strength. And so I've been taking about the last 8 weeks and gradually regaining strength, but it's happened very fast because I've been doing weights I used to do. I know how to train, and my body is like, we've done this before, this is fine. But this week, I've started setting PRs again. I'm in new growth territory. This says past peak right here. So now that I'm hitting this point of previous maximum skill in cubing, future growth from here will probably be slower and rockier. One, because I've never been this far before. I'm not reacquiring an old skill. And two, I don't know how to do it. Yes, I'm getting coaching, and yes, I'm being as intellectually over-analytical as I can about it, but the growth is not going to be as fast because I don't know how to improve at those things just yet. That's okay. If I keep putting in work, week in and week out, growth is inevitable as long as I'm intentional about, is the work going to the point of highest leverage? So this is why my current motto is trust the process. So specifically for 3x3, what I'm trying to do is move from gym language, 1 rep max training to 5 rep max training. So previously I talked about stamina versus peak performance training. With 3x3 right now, if I look at videos of my solves, I'm not turning quickly at all, and I can just tell from how my head moves, the way I'm flipping the cube around to like look for pieces, that I am using every last one of my brain cells to get a sub 10 solve. That's not bad, but it's not great either, because I can't solve for very long using that much brain power, and under pressure I'll fold. What I want to do is make those same solves easy for me. So in the gym, it's the difference between somebody who gives all their energy behind, lifting a weight for 1 repetition, and then somebody who's much stronger than them picking up the same weight and doing it 5 times in a row. They did technically move the same weight, but for one person, that same weight is way easier than for the other person. And you get to that more comfortable level with the same output just by putting in more reps. So for 3x3, I am not comfortable at all with solving right now. I forget if I put that on here. Nope, I didn't. So I'm not comfortable at all with the solve right now. I'll inspect and I'll be like kind of like I can kind of see cross +1, but it's really, really hard. And then as I do it, I mess up like 50% of the time. And then as I get past cross +1, I'm like, oh yeah, I have more F2L to do. And then I'm kind of like thrown off until I get to last layer. And then I'm not totally in the zone for last layer. The solves just feel wonky. It's like I can solve this way where I inspect cross +1 and look ahead and do a good last layer, but I want to go from I can sort of do this once to I'm so comfortable with solving like this. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of time with a 3x3 in my hand to go from I'm sort of comfortable doing this to I can do this a lot. And then for big cubes, I'm in maintenance mode. Because I want to pick one thing and make drastic gains in it, like I talked about in my previous video, and then keep everything else in kind of the maintenance window. So specific training plan for the next week. This last week, I noticed that with 3x3, I do better if I space out the averages. So I'm gonna do 2 look F2L every day still. But then if I want to get to 125 3x3 solves in a day, I could just do like an hour and a half of solves straight through. But for my brain, and this is an ADHD thing, it works better if I do a little bit of 3x3, and then I pick up my 4x4, and I do an average of 12. Then I do a little bit of 3x3, then I pick up my 7x7, then a little bit of 3x3, then I pick up my 5x5. That does somewhat defeat the whole stamina versus peak performance training thing, but I don't think it ultimately does. I think the trade-off is worth it because I enjoy this so much more. So this sort of training style suits my mind because the constant switching keeps me engaged. I will get way more quality 3x3 reps in, and it's just fun. I found out like once I get deeper into a session, like 4x4 and up, I can put something on in the background. So I've been watching on a second monitor, but mostly listening through My Hero Academia. I'm really enjoying the show. It's super solid. So yeah, that's everything. Please, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, etc. for me, drop them down below. I read and respond to just about every single comment. So at this point, it is back to work. I'm going to keep doing the hard work, especially when I don't feel like it.